Good morning. Before we begin chapter 10, we're going to do a summary of chapters 8 and 9. I know chapter 9 wasn't assigned to you, but fill in the blanks as I read the warm-up aloud. Before Homer can get to Mr. Brewster's house, he passes out from hunger. At any point, you can press pause to make sure you have all the words written down. A lady, Mrs. Bean, invites him into the house and gives him pancakes to eat. Homer lies. That two shouldn't be there. Homer lies and tells her he is from Smelt, a made-up town. Then Homer meets Jebediah Brewster, who he says looks like God. Homer is too afraid to lie to Mr. Brewster, so he doesn't say much. Then Mr. Brewster shows Homer where his gemstone, that shouldn't be a blank, where his gemstone mines are. Yet Mr. Brewster lets Homer know that he doesn't mine anymore. He doesn't tell Homer what he uses the mines for now, though. Last, Mr. Brewster tells Homer that he knows Smelt and Stink and what they are up to. Homer is shocked. Our focus question for today is, how does the narrator's point of view affect the plot? What can be gained or lost from the narrator's point of view? And remember, point of view is the same as author's perspective. Before we keep reading, we're going to preview our vocabulary words. The first one is Society of Friends. It's a sect founded by George Fox in England about 1650, and they are opposed to oath-taking and war. So it's a religious group. Okay, and this is their symbol. The star is their symbol. And then a Quaker is a member of the Religious Society of Friends. Okay, and they believe right is right and wrong is wrong. All right. As we're reading chapter 10 aloud, we're going to use our CSPS strategy, and it might also be helpful for you to underline fast evidence in your text. About Homer. First we're thinking, what is Homer like? Turn to page 50. I'm at Harold Red. And you really will want to follow along in your book because these words are pretty small on the screen. Homer read me a story once about a man who could see into your mind. Think of a number and he'll pull it out of a deck of cards. Man could tell what you were thinking before you thought it. He knew your Aunt Mildred's birthday and how many horses your brother owned and if you preferred rhubarb to apple pie. At the end, he saw things that got him tarred and feathered and run out of town on a rail, and that was the best part of the story. I'm wondering if Jebediah Brewster has the same power to read minds. Doesn't seem possible he'd figure everything out because of one measly word. Turns out it wasn't only the word smelt, it was seeing the man himself. Pause right there. So right now, Homer is wondering how Mr. Brewster found out that Smelt sent him to spy on Mr. Brewster. And back in chapter 9, we learned that he knew Homer was working for Smelt because Homer said he was from Smelt. And Homer was talking about a made-up town, but Mr. Brewster, picked up on the fact that, he was working for Smelt. So when we're thinking about who is Homer and what is he like, we know from past chapters that Homer is a liar. He's a liar, and he was sent to find out where Mr. Brewster was hiding the runaway slaves. And Smelt sent him there because he's such a good liar. So go ahead and write that down in your box for character. Press pause if you need more time and play when you're ready for box 2. And now we're thinking, where is Homer? Well, we know he is with Mr. Brewster at his house. Homer is with Mr. Brewster at his house. And as we're reading, we'll look for more details about the character and the setting so that we can have evidence from the text to support our claim. I'm at Mr. Smelt. Mr. Smelt has been following us, Brewster explains softly, his hard blue eyes lifted to the hills around us. Thinks he's being clever, but the Lord gave me the eyes of an eagle, and that isn't a dirty old weasel. It's Ebenezer Smelt, scuttling among the rocks. He's the color of dirt, but I see him, indeed I do. He made me do it, I managed to say. Made me come out here on a rotten lie. Mr. Brewster and Mrs. Bean have been so good and decent it makes me want to cry, having to admit that I've been sent to betray them. Maybe he did and maybe he didn't, Mr. Brewster says, not unkindly. Makes no difference. Our strategy remains the same. Let them watch us, Smelt and his Confederates, see what it gets them doing the devil's work. They got a darky man, I tell him, eager to make up for all my falsehoods. I think they mean to kill him or sell him for a slave. Mr. Brewster glances at me sort of sideways, his eyes never straying long from the hills. Darky is not a proper word, he says, very stern. If a man has dark skin, say that he is colored or that he's African, or better yet, do not refer to his complexion. Does the Lord care if we be pink or brown? I assure thee he does not. They put a sack on his head, I tell him, the color man. That would be Mr. Samuel Reed, the conductor, says Brewster, squinting into the distance. He's been leading a group of slaves to freedom and was abducted 2 days ago. We've been on the lookout ever since. I figure by conductor he means the colored man works on a train collecting tickets. But Mr. Brewster is talking about the Underground Railroad, which is a different thing. He explains that there aren't actual trains on the Underground Railroad, and no rails to speak of, but they do have conductors who guide fugitive slaves from station to station. Each station being a house or a hiding place. Could be a root cellar or a shed or a mine. Anywhere they can have fugitives on their way north to Canada, where slavery has been outlawed. Thousands come this way, he explains. They are given safety at this station and many others like it. Men like Samuel Reed risk their own freedom so that others may be free, and men like Mullins and Smelt, Mullins is Stink's real name, and men like Mullins and Smelt are always waiting in the shadows, eager to betray them for a few pieces of silver. The evil that men do for money continues to astound me. Are thee kin to such men, Homer Figgs? Speak the truth, for I shall know if thee is lying. I decided that lying to Jebediah Brewster is like lying to God. You can't fool either one. So I tell him about coming upon Stinkin' Smelt in the woods, how they stole Bob the horse and took me prisoner, and how Smelt will be waiting for me when night comes, and that he will want to know where the fugitives have been hid. Mr. Brewster nods. It's as I suspected. Come along, Homer, back to the house, as if we are not aware of Mr. Smelt is watching us. This evening, after supper, thee wilt report to him as instructed. What should I tell him? I asked. Mr. Brewster's smile is as hard and cold as a diamond gemstone. Tell him the truth, he says. The truth shall set thee free. Night never took so long to come. It's like someone nailed the sun in the sky just to torment me. Because the last thing in the world I want to do is come face to face with Ebenezer Smelt. He might try and snatch me away. And even though Mr. Brewster says to tell him the truth, I'm afraid of what he'll do with the truth. Because the real truth is, I don't know what's going to happen when night finally gets here. Alright, and now we've come to our problem. Sorry, I haven't been following along with you on the screen. We're right here on page 53. We're at our problem, and we know that Homer is going to have to face Smelt at night. And in this paragraph on page 53, it lets us know that Homer is afraid to go see Smelt, and he is afraid to tell him the truth, like Mr. Brewster told him to. Press pause to write that down, and then pick out a quote from the text to support your answer for the problem. And we also had some evidence for the setting at the bottom of page 52, where he says, come along back to the house. And then we found evidence for the character about Homer lying on page 52, where it says, I decided that lying to Jebediah Brewster was like lying to God. Can't fool either one. So he told him the truth. So put that quote under character. Press pause to finish up writing your quotes, and then press play when you're ready for the solution. Now we're at Mr. Brewster is as calm. Mr. Brewster is as calm as some old white mountain, waiting for the wind to wear it down. There's no rush about him. He waits like waiting is all he ever wanted to do. I was raised among the Society of Friends, the people thee call Quakers, he says, staring at me like a great bearded barn owl. We're on the side porch, racing the rolling hills to the west, and every shadow looks like someone coming to steal me away. In the big warm kitchen, Miss Bean is cooking supper. The smell of beef and potatoes wafting out to the porch makes my throat feel thick, like it's hard to swallow, like I still have a few fat lies stuck in my throat. The Friends believe no man may be enslaved by another, Mr. Brewster continues, very stern. We also believe no man has the right to kill another, even in war, no matter how just the war. Forbidden from the battlefield, I must find another path towards righteousness. Plus, such a place is here, he says, thumping his rocking chair with his fist. Jebediah Brewster stands up tall as the world and takes hold of my hand. Come along, Homer Fig, there's a sight thee must see. He takes me to the basement door. Figure he's going to lock me up like Squint and throw away the key, except there are no locks on the doors in the Brewster house. Be not afraid, he says, no harm will come to thee. He lights a glowing lantern and throws open the basement door. From below comes a light of other lanterns and a gentle murmur, the sound that sounds like a deep river that cries like a baby. So when we're thinking about our solution, we don't really have a solution to Homer's problem yet. He's afraid. And we know that Mr. Brewster tells him, not to be afraid, and he shows him what's in the basement. And we can infer that there are people in the basement. And now we're thinking, well, why would Mr. Brewster hide people in his basement? He has this big house. So now I'm thinking the runaway slaves must be in the basement because they're hiding. And now Mr. Brewster has just shown Homer where the runaway slaves are. So now he's going to have to tell Smelt the truth because he knows where the runaway slaves are. So write that in the solution. Mr. Brewster shows Homer where the runaway slaves are, and now Homer has to tell the truth to Smelt. And when you're finished, try to get started on this paragraph. Ready, set,